Hello everyone, this is Surf. We're back at it again, talking about more meta thoughts concerning the Stoneworks community. Today we are talking about soft power. This isn't about war, this is about threatening war and watching your opponent have an absolute mental breakdown over the stress of perhaps their entire nation falling apart. What to do about that? How to project your power, and how to make your nation not fall apart when it's suffering from this sort of problem. That is what we're going to be talking about today. So, if you like what I do here, subscribe to the channel, like the video, tell your friends, and let's dive right on in. And right before I start talking to you about all the stuff about soft power, remember to subscribe. 86% of you aren't subscribed, and I love doing this, so if you want to send some encouragement my way, that's absolutely fantastic, and the best way to do that is through your subscription, commenting on the video, and everything everyone else tells you to do. But like most videos here, we've got three categories. Firstly, military projection. This is for the people that are doing the soft power on other people. Military projection, how to do soft power, right? Then mental distress. What we're talking about, the stress that this soft power has on others, and what you've likely seen when your nation has been threatened with war or pretty much any tough situation. And thirdly is how to survive, and this is for those who are suffering from the soft power being put on. How to survive, how to keep things stable, and how to keep going under such pressure. Firstly here, talking about military projection, and one of the main points of this is size ignorance. No nation knows what the other nation is currently going through in terms of active population, because there are surges. There are surges throughout the year of activity. Take like Bardonia or Iraq, for example, some of the most populated things in the server, nations within the server. They're dealing with the fluctuations of kind of the stuff just like every other nation. Activity is high in the summer, it's low in the winter, people are in school, etc. And so just because a nation has a ton of players does not mean those players are getting on or participating in the military, etc. And also, motivation is key. Who is going to want to do the fighting and why? Most people who are in the sort of militaries of Stoneworks have experience in doing a lot of fighting in PvP, and they're probably just in it for the fun. And so if you're suffering from soft pressure, then you might need to find a way to counterbalance that. And most of the time, it's through finance. If you're rich, you can pay for mercs, etc. Disincentivize the people that are going there just to wipe the floor with some newbies, you know? And also, banditry. We'll think about banditry. A lot of people who do a lot of the fighting for nations are bandits on the side. They know about PvP. They can kill players at will. They're very confident in their ability. But that is always used to sort of the disadvantage of the person being pressured. You know, if you have somebody who's a bandit, they are liable to be in your land a lot more often. That's something that you really need to watch out for. If you see a guy who you don't recognize, is not in the nation, he's not in the Discord, and you're being pressured by another nation diplomatically, he might be from there, and it's probably best to let your people know. Expanding on banditing a little bit, banditry in a nation that is being pressured by soft power is one of the greatest ways in the server to destroy your opponent's morale before the war even takes place. Say, for example, I'll talk from experience. When Araka was doing the Northwest stuff before the collapse of COG, etc., there were Arakan bandits in COG, just in the capital, in Grixedo, killing people. And everyone's like, oh, we don't have what it takes to stand up to them. Mainly because COG doesn't PvP, or they did not PvP at all. And when faced with someone who could actually PvP, they were wiped to the floor with, and their morale went down the tubes. Defeating your enemy through banditry before the war even starts is massively psychologically devastating and is a very effective tactic. And adding on to that, one last thing, it also just sort of destroys your resource pool if you're killed by a bandit from a nation that you're being pressured by, and you get all your stuff stolen or whatever. I don't know if bandits can do that. I didn't brush up on the rules before this, but if the enemy sort of kills you and takes your stuff before the war, it can put a serious hampering on your stockpile for when the war comes. Lastly, the financial power. Now, those who do best in war have the biggest pockets. You can pay for mercs, you have the ability to allocate resources, and if you want to be creative, you can pay citizen soldiers. Now, a lot of people that are really great at PvP will probably show up to a war anyway, just for the fun of it, but if you really need to mobilize your citizen base to defend or attack or whatever, paying them is a great way to incentivize them to show up. Because a lot of people, especially if your nation isn't particularly PvP oriented, are not keen to participate in wars. They'll be like, yeah, I'll support you over the Discord, I'll add a chat emoji to your national announcement or whatever. But in terms of actually showing up and wielding a sword and spam clicking if they don't know what they're doing, those people they're gonna be less likely to show up, and paying them is a great way to counteract all of that. Now moving on to the mental distress of having the pressure put on from the soft power. Now we're going to be this is long-term stress. This is not going to be over in a day or a couple days, maybe it'll be like a week and a half or 2 weeks until the commands are actually put through to have a RP war, or like just server side / LA war, whatever. I've never done a war before. Or I've never typed in the command for the war before. But it brings out the worst in your citizenry. A lot of stuff is going to start happening, especially with people who aren't affiliated with the administration of your nation, but are active on the server. Those who don't really know what's going on at the top echelons of government, but are still active. These are the guys you want to watch out for. Keep them comforted. Just make sure they don't absolutely go off the deep end of defeatism, because defeatism is one of the main opponents within your own nation when you're being soft pressured. People are going to maybe turn traitor at the worst, or like sort of attempt a compromise with the enemy nation, and you just need to keep that off the table, or make sure they're abiding by the plan of the national government. And really, transparency is key. If you can see all of this stress starting to get to the civilian population. The next thing you might see when soft power is put on is the surge of opposition internationally. You could have traitors, you could have people behind the scenes who have some sort of power. Maybe they own a claim, and maybe they own a state within your nation. You want to make sure they are not colluding with enemy powers to get a backroom deal, because that can absolutely destroy everything. You can be resolute in your opposition to an invading power, but if a bunch of your states try to start getting their affairs in order for the new regime that is coming in, you've essentially already lost the battle. They've already made concessions to the foreign invader, trying to save their own skin to your detriment, or to the detriment of the national body. Also, watch out for reform factions. When the pressure is put on and people are scared or angry or whatever, they're going to start pointing out the problems in your own nation. And rightfully so. You're going to want to try to reform your nation the best way possible. That's natural for people who believe in their nation, but that's not the time. You're in a point of crisis, external crisis. And now people are going off and trying to start internal crises, trying to reform what they'd call a broken system. Even if it's not so broken, you're just dealing with a very stressful time. People will say, the system sucks, it's horrible, and we need to reform it in order to deal with the situation better. But all you're going to do in that situation is level the foundation that your nation already has. Even if it's a poor one, they're going to do more damage at the time of external crisis than they intend to do. Lastly, in terms of mental distress, is the incompetence of allies. This is not something you'll see within your own nation, perhaps, but through nations, specifically in coalition wars, when there's a bunch of nations working together to tackle a big bad, a common enemy, etc. And the incompetence of allies is what can dismantle your entire effort to counteract this main villain in the first place. If you get there and your people are trying their best, they're like, yeah, let's get in and help everybody. There's already like 200 people in the server. We got this, guys. We got this. But then there's nothing going on in the leadership. It's like you have a body, but without a brain. There's no brain in it. None of the leaders of the nations are colluding together. There's no officer corps that's training people. You just have a server with all these people that have a common enemy, but all you're talking about is stuff that is irrelevant. And people will see weakness in bad allies. People will see the weakness in bad allies, and then the defeatism starts, saying, like, oh, we're toast. Oh, our allies aren't doing anything, etc., etc. And that's when things start to fall apart. So if you are engaging in these coalition wars and you're a nation leader or an official of some kind, it is really within your best interest to be transparent as much as national security will allow you to be regarding what's going on and when it's going on, specifically with like trainings and stuff, just to know that stuff is going on, just to get added every once in a while during this crisis and say, hey, we're doing this training, or hey, we're holding this speech to make sure everyone's well communicated with, etc. Because if you don't, everyone will just sort of slink back into their own nation's hidey holes and will believe the cause to be lost before it's even began. Our third and final category here, how to survive. The first thing is internal stability. Communicate clearly to your citizens and have them help you with initiatives concerning the task at hand. If you're thinking about, if there's external threat going on, think about building forts, fortifications, etc. To know that you're doing things and actively making preparations instead of staying in the government chats for them, which are invisible to them, knowing that stuff is going on and you're talking to people will go a long way. Also, just chilling, if you're a official within the nation, just chilling in voice chats and allowing people to pop in and speak to you, that also works. Just communication is key, really, and make sure all of the government officials are on the same page with you, because internal factionalism and fracturing within the breakdown of communication during a time of crisis is absolutely awful, and people will try to go their own different directions, pursue their own methods, non-coordinated, in trying to solve this thing, and things are going to conflict. Ideas and intentions are going to conflict and make things a heck of a lot harder. The next thing is having solid advisors. These people don't need to have responsibilities other than to overlook the server and give you advice based on what they see nationally and internationally. These don't have to be a council of your ministers. They don't have to be a council of governors, etc., whatever names you use for big nobility, landowners, etc. It doesn't need to be them. It can just be anybody that you fully trust and has experience within your nation. But don't let them off the hook if they start wilding. You know what I'm saying? Purge defeatists in positions of power. That is something that you shouldn't be afraid to do in a moment of crisis if you're the leader. If you're the leader of a nation and you're trying to hold things together, but all of a sudden one guy pipes up and it's like, oh, it's over. Oh, no, it's gone. We might as well start trying to speak with the invading power, get a compromise just to save what little we can. Get that guy out of here. Get that guy out of here. He's gone crazy. His nerve has broken under the pressure, and that guy should not be influencing your politics. I mean, it's so hard, especially if you know the guy, especially like online, of course, if they've done good work so far, but their nerve has just broken under the pressure. That's something to be expected, but you shouldn't allow it to continue to corrupt the morale of the entire nation. Also, if with your government structure, if that's a bit difficult to do, if you can't just, if you're not like an absolute monarch and you can't impeach people on the spot, publicly denounce officials who are engaging in the weakening of the nation, whether it be for their own gain or they really think all is lost, etc. The public denouncement of them, or even the private denouncement, if that doesn't work, if they're doing stuff that you don't approve of and you think it's costing the nation either prestige or negotiating power or resources, etc., you can go into them in their DMs first and be like, hey, you need to shape up. You're making us look bad, etc. And if they keep doing that, then a public denouncement. Try to make sure they don't have the support they need to absolutely uproot your nation and deliver them to the invader in a position of weakness, etc. Get that guy out of there if he won't see reason. Lastly, but not leastly here, we have the motivation to succeed. And motivation is what keeps the nation alive. Motivation, the ability to get on every day and participate, and etc., etc., that is what keeps every nation afloat. And low motivation of your national leadership is a great way to have your nation absolutely fracture and enter a death spiral that won't soon pull up out of. And you can see that in a lot of nations that collapse, where the top leadership is dissolved and given to those who own land, like the state leaders, when that national body that held them all together no longer has the motivation to keep everyone together, firstly, and then secondly, they have no heir, kind of. They have no person that they trust fully with the nation to pass it along to. And that is something we've seen in a lot of nations that have sort of fractured and splintered into opposing parts. The people who have led the nation at the very top just don't want to do it anymore, and with the circumstance coinciding with that, where they have no one they trust as much as to leave it completely in their care. And so motivation, of course, is key to the lifeblood of the nation. Tying this all in to the soft power is when the nerve is broken at the very top of the leadership and they don't want to participate anymore. They're done. They're done, but they don't have anyone to pass it on to. What do? They just... It's always hard. It's always hard because they'll probably just leave. They'll step down, etc., and leave a power vacuum. I've seen that because it's a video game. It's Minecraft. They're like, forget it, I'm out of here. Forget you guys, I'm done. And then the people that are left are just there to pick up the pieces, and whatever happens, happens. And most of the time, all of the sort of landowners go their own way, all of the state leaders go their own way, and form their own nation, which is sad to see when you have a nation with a pretty long and storied history. But what do you think? I want to hear your stories in the comments. Have you ever experienced soft power? Have you ever put it on anyone else? I want to hear about it. I want to know how it affects you. I want a support group in the comments. I want to hear people comforting each other, telling them it's okay. You're going to live. You're going to figure it out. Because the stress of having soft power put on you is kind of overwhelming, especially when you're not used to it. Trust me, once it's happened once or twice, you kind of get used to it and you know how to play the game. But the first time it's hard, you know? It's hard when you don't know what you're doing. You know what I'm saying. I'm going to end it right here. So like the video, subscribe to the channel, tell your friends, and I will be back very soon with the next video. See you.